Welcome, data enthusiasts. We are Zuma, the recruitment consultancy focused 100% on data tech professionals in the Berlin region. And this is our podcast, Data for Good, connecting you with all things data. And today we're joined by Shayan Fallahi. Shayan is Senior BI Manager, some strong focus in engineering as well, but Senior BI Manager at GROPYUS. And GROPYUS, if you don't already know, they design and develop sustainable buildings, helping to save time, cost, and the environment. With their HQ in Vienna, they have a strong presence in Germany and in Berlin, and indeed around 20 people of 20 persons of the data team are in Berlin as well. Shayan, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Hey, good. I'm looking forward to hearing about today's topic, data fabric. Give us an introduction to data fabric.
Okay, sure. Maybe before that, if you don't mind, I just briefly tell about myself, or how did I ended up where I am at the moment and working with the data fabric. I'm coming
totally, especially with, sorry to interrupt, especially with the reference to your engineering background, and also why data fabric is so relevant to the work that you do. So yeah, give it to me.
Because if I want to be very, very honest with you, my career was kind of like a build-up, which brought me into this topic of data fabric and where I'm standing. So basically I'm coming from like education-wise, I'm coming from a lot of management studies, as well as like a little bit of BI, let's say. And then over the course of my working experience, 3 years after education, I have been like heavily, let's say, worked on the BI field for one of the biggest corporate in Germany, Delivery Hero, for those of you who might know about it. And then, unfortunately, I have been, let's say, witnessing this, let's say, very complex infrastructure of data, which is in big corporates like Delivery Hero is out there, right? And then, I have been there when the challenges of like, I don't know, incorporating all these data into a report, or like making a meaning out of all these scattered information, or like how hard it would be. And then that being said, at some point when I was like about to change my career, I have got introduced into this idea of a data fabric, which is supposedly is there to solve this, let's say, in German, they call it Kabelsalat. Yeah, it is, let's say, a mixture of a lot of things which are interconnected, and then you don't necessarily know how to find yourself in it. Yeah, and data fabric is supposedly there to solve this problem. Yeah, so yeah, and that's how I ended up knowing about data fabric and then joining GROPYUS. And going back to your original question right now, what is a data fabric? This is basically a harmonized layer of data, basically as it is, let's say, understandable by the name of it. You're trying to tie a fabric out of all these different sources of information that you have, instead of trying to have silos of information which are totally separate and you cannot really interoperably use the information.
It was data clear. Layer. Yeah, it was a data. You've helped to contextualize it for us. The topics around data management and like a fabric, a layer of data. Okay, so in further contextualizing, what are the different components of data fabric?
Of course, from the architecture point of view, you can build the data fabric in multiple, let's say, variation. Yeah, you can build it in very different ways, right? But then let's say that from the perspective of data management, and then how it is the information is being tied, this is kind of like the interesting thing about it. There are not that many components. There is only one component, because you are trying to build only a single source of truth and only one location where the data is meaningful. Yeah. And then you are trying to, so basically there's this single component of the data. Of course, for those of you who might be more techie, you are partitioning the data, meaning that when it comes to the storage of it, you're locating it in a different location. But then at the same time, there is this one single unit of information which has data, let's say, from the very beginning of your value chain till the very end of your value chain. And try to ties all these information together, which ultimately can provide insight for every piece of the business. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, thus maximizing the value of data. But I would assume that it involves broadly topics like governance, data ingestion, cataloging, orchestration, all these areas, all encompassing.
Of course.
Not that we have to talk about all of those areas today, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe the most relevant part to talk about, like when it comes to this, is the let's say the two main components of the data fabric. For those of you who might be a little bit more interested, there is, for every, let's say, interaction which is happening online or maybe even offline, there is this row of data. Think about it in the Excel format. Yeah, like when I'm saying that this person had ordered this particular product, for example, online. Here, the issue with this information is that a lot of these data is not contextualized. Let's make an example. I'm originally Iranian. By just saying this sentence, you're already having all these information around Iran. It can be about our cuisine, it can be about the politics, it can be about the geographical location and all that. It already comes into your mind, yeah? Because human brain is capable of working with, let's say, graph, or human brain is working in the graph form, right? Not in the let's say tabular data form, yeah, like in the Excel form or something. And yeah, all these contexts is something that what we are trying to define in the ontology. And that's where like all these contexts about something is coming. For example, like all those background information that you had about Iran is an ontology type of information, right? And then there's going to be like some form of an instant, yeah, or like a particular piece of information, which is like Shayan being Iranian, right? And then you're attaching this instant into all those contexts that you have about the country in your mind, right? And this is exactly what data fabric is supposedly doing via a technology being called knowledge graph. Yeah. And this knowledge graph basically has let's say the two piece that I told you, ontology and instances.
Okay, good. I was going to ask you this later, actually, but to further put it in context, are we seeing this in other organizations? Data mesh has been talked about for quite some time now, but do you have some examples of organizations or exciting use cases that have successfully implemented data fabric?
Of course, like there are like big players in every let's say market or every industry which are playing with the same technology. There are already articles about how Uber, for example, is leveraging that. I think if I'm not mistaken, they are using the same technology to find the closest rider to the very location where you are, to come and pick you up, just like a normal like a pickup car kind of situation. Or Kia is using the same technology in order to have like a monitoring from the very beginning, where like raw material is coming into their system till the very final product is like being delivered to the consumer, right? But to be very honest, I think our use cases at GROPYUS are by far, even the most interesting one. I don't know like how much of time do we have, but maybe I can go over one very interesting one of them for now.
Go on.
Which is the material tracking. So think about it like this. In any normal, or let's say conventional construction company, what happens is that you are buying a bunch of material, you're using them over the course of like 1 or 2 years that you're building the building. And then after that, the building is being delivered, or in the construction world, they are calling it commissioned, then you are having no supervision over all these materials. How long do they last? How are they being used? Are they needing any maintenance or something? So basically what happens is that you are living your life till one of these, let's say, pieces of the building is failing. It can be a water pump or a screw on a wall. And then at that moment, the maintenance guy needs to go and fix it. Versus what happens in the data fabric world, and this is what we are implementing in here at GROPYUS, we are trying to monitor a material, no matter how big or small that material is, from the very beginning till the very end of our value chain. And by the beginning of our value chain, I'm referring to the very buying material, like raw material, and end of our value chain would be the experience of you living in a home, which is already even partially being, let's say, maintained or being ready for you to use. Yeah. And this is very practical, because let's imagine that a water pump in the 3rd floor, 2nd unit is broken for whatever reason. Due to the fact that we have tracked this water pump across its value chain, we know when, how many, and why, or from which supplier did we buy this water pump, how much other water pumps of the same model have been used in the building. So we can simply, without the water pump being broken, go and fix it. So you would have this seamless experience of living while nothing is failing in your apartment or in your building, because there is some understanding of when is it going to be failed, or when is it going to fail. You know what I mean?
So yeah, it's a data management concept, but it's also a management concept of whatever the data is. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. How does data fabric relate to other data management concepts? If you take data lakes and data warehouses as an example.
Yeah. So I was trying to explain how human brain, or let's say human in general, is working in this network format. Probably you have heard this famous example of, they say that via 5 connection or 7 connection, every person on LinkedIn is going to be connected to Barack Obama.
Yeah.
That he used to be the president. At the time that he was president, you know, it was a famous thing, because human is working in the network format. Basically, what data fabric is trying to do is intentionally trying to stand against the idea of data warehouse or data lake. Because let's break it down. What are you doing in the data lake structure? You are simply storing all the data into a storage with the hope of one day somebody going and finding some structure who can digest, or which can digest this like massive amount of data, or like as an opposed, like a data warehouse, or like all these relational database, let's say the conventional way of storing data, is trying to store data into tables which are not necessarily let's say self-sustaining or self-content. Simply, if I'm looking at the table of all my orders, you are going to be an ID of a consumer, right? You would be the ID 15367, you know, which doesn't have any meaning. For me to understand who you are, where you are coming from, what was your order about, and all that, I need to check multiple other tables, which is that very topic that I was initially referring to, that, you know, there's this massive like jumps from one table to another one to make meaning. Versus in the data fabric, you know, by default, at the time that you are being introduced to the system, all these attributes around you of like who you are, what gender do you have, what are the preferences that you have, and all that, or can be introduced into the system, right? The same way that I was making that example of like, I'm Iranian, and you have already had all those, let's say, thoughts or context around Iran attached to this. You know, you already know me partially because you had all those contexts, right? This is the exact same idea in the data fabric. So every data is only coming into the system once its context exists in the system, right? And yeah, so basically it doesn't have any overlap if I wanna simplify it. Of course, like a lot of underlying technologies might be the same, but the very gist of it would be different in that case.
Right. You mentioned the case study of GROPYUS and the work you're doing to incorporate data fabric, ideology, or systematic work. Could you give us more of the potential benefits? Because there'll be other data leaders that are considering advocating for data fabric across their organizations. If you're talking about accessibility, governance, quality, what could be the benefits of data fabric?
When you were introducing GROPYUS, you were talking briefly about the sustainability side of our building. Of course, like you can go down the path of all these, let's say, simple decisions that we made, or relatively simple decisions that we made, which is like, I don't know, our buildings being wooden, yeah? Or we are trying to work on like all these solar energy topic, which is, let's say, conventional or understandable, yeah? Probably there are other industries or other companies which are doing the same thing. But then what data fabric is enabling us to do is basically, so at GROPYUS, we are building a twin for every building, right? And then we're really calling it a digital twin, which is basically the copy of every building digitally, right? In case you have watched any of these, like, I don't know, robbery movies, there is this application that the security guard is clicking on one button and all the doors are just like being shown visually closed. I mean, we don't have those visuals, but I mean, we are having a digital version of the building. And then this digital version can have, let's say, multiple pieces. One of them is the eco twin, which is basically trying to capture the ecological impact of the building that we have, not only at the time that the building is being used, but also from the very beginning of the value chain. For example, how much of CO2 footprint does this wall that I have in my building have? This CO2 can come from the very beginning of the value chain, where you are buying the wood, how you are carrying it into your factory, how you are processing the wood. After that, the wood is being processed as being produced into a wall. I'm, of course, oversimplifying the process. Being produced into a wall, the wall needs to be shipped at the construction site. How much of CO2 footprint did you have then? You know, and all that stuff is being monitored, captured, and being stored into a data fabric, you know? And then, of course, like the very beginning, I mean, they say that the first step to solve every problem is to notice the problem. So we are basically capturing those information, and we are trying to, let's say, improve from that perspective to, I don't know, be even further sustainable, completely get rid of or offsite our CO2 footprint out there, and so on. Of course, I can tell more about the sustainability perspective, but I think, yeah, probably due to time, I need to keep it.
Well, clearly it's having a massive impact on decision-making. And that decision-making is around cost efficiencies, sustainability.
as well.
product life cycle of all the
Yeah.
products that you're using. Yeah, it seems endless.
This is actually very interesting. You're referring to product life cycle. I'll just shortly refer to that as well. If you think about it, like in every building out there would once it is not being used anymore, needs to be demolished. And I simply don't know what happens to the very material which have been taken out of the building. Of course, I assume that there are going to be some efforts into reusing them, but then I don't know how possible that is. As an oppose, I just need to mute myself again. I'm sorry. Yeah, all good.
You're in a busy meeting room.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. People just want to say hi. Yeah, and then what happens in our side is that not only we track all the material that we use, but also because we have the context of the data, we know how long this material can be used and what would happen to it afterward, either in the nature or like, I don't know, for that being decomposed in the long run, you know? So we even have the possibility to separate it later on once the building is being demolished and just put the right thing in the right order, you know, and then just manage to manage the life cycle from the sustainability perspective, from the lifetime expectancy better. Yeah. So it is just massive impact on every angle of construction.
And I can see if you take construction or you relate data fabric not only to construction but to other industry areas, production, the manufacturing line, for example, it kind of gives way to self-service analytics with it being a single source of truth that is transparent throughout. The decision makers across every level, every point in the value chain can make decisions based on, well, yeah, having everything in one place.
Yeah.
Okay. Challenges. What do you see as the challenges or the risks?
So
I'm sure there are some.
Of course there are. Of course, within the past 1-2 years, we have then seen this hype around the artificial intelligence, and in particular LLM. For those of you who might not know what that is, it's large language model. It is basically what a lot of these artificial intelligence engines are based at, yeah, or based on. Simply, they're taking like big amount of text and they're trying to make some meaning out of it, and then that meaning being extracted in a way that it can generate, let's say, new form of information. Yeah. That being said, of course, like LLM can be a potential risk for data fabric in general, because if I can just like say all these things that I'm saying about a building, and then I don't know, there's going to be a machine who's going to write it down, and then there's going to be another machine who's going to read this thing which is written down, and then I'm going to go to ChatGPT type of equivalent thing and just ask a question of like, okay, where is that in my building, or what is that, or like how long is this thing in here, or what is this wall made out of? I mean, some people would say that this is a feasible practice. I would say
sounds like an enabler, not a challenge.
In a way, you were kind of reading my mind in that sense, right? Because right now, what we are having as an issue with a lot of these AI engines is the precision, basically how accurate is the information that you're providing. And that being said, I don't think that they are where they need to be, at least when it comes to some topics. Yeah. And of course, if at any point of time we are managing to produce like super accurate, I would say in the scientific world, 99.9% accurate information, probably yeah, we are going to live in a different world. Let's say in that world, I'm not sure where data fabric would stand, but at least to me it seems like we are far from that. And at the moment, you're kind of right, because you can use this artificial intelligence to enrich your data fabric, or the other way around, you can give your data fabric to an artificial intelligence, and then you would ask questions, you would throw questions to your data fabric. So instead of the language that you are using normally to deal with knowledge graph is Sparkle. So instead of you learning the Sparkle language, you can just simply talk with your chat GPT, and trust me, your chat GPT understand the knowledge graph that we're building like pretty well. So
okay,
you would just simply go to chat GPT and be like, how many of these water pumps have I used in the building and where are they located? Just tell me the address of them. And that would give to your maintenance guy, who's going to go.
Okay. So that also makes me think of risk then, particularly around security, due to the complexity of data fabric. What are the potential risks, security-wise or otherwise?
Many. Generally, smart building is a risk, let's say, but then data fabric itself as well. First of all, as the technology is pretty cutting edge, I would say there are a lot of, let's say, software that you are using which are not necessarily developed to a good extent, or they are pretty much in the beginning of their lifetime. Yeah. I would say that should be one issue from the software engineering perspective. Another risk that I see with this is that let's say that the speed of technology changing within the past 10, 15 years have been so fast that I don't know how long each technology that we are let's say getting into is gonna sustain or live. Yeah. And from that perspective, I think data fabric is probably, due to the nature of it, due to the fact that a lot of the things that we're doing for the first time is pretty time consuming. So you're putting a lot of time into something that you're not sure how long is it gonna survive. So it is, you see what I mean? It is somewhat,
well, there's a cost risk massively there.
True.
Okay, well, we've spoken mostly about the benefits and not as much about the risks. So I would encourage people to, do their own research, whether it be individual contributors or data leaders. Are there any in your research and your striving for adoption of data fabric? Are there any resources that you would recommend data professionals look into to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, generally there are a lot of resources online, as long as you're searching on keywords like semantic web, you are searching on data fabric as of the topic itself, knowledge graph. For those who are like, even they want to be even further down into the technology, ontology, triple patterns, these are going to be all the, let's say, the topics that you are interested about, let's say, in the field. And I think this is already somewhat connected to the former question that you were asking about the risk as well. If you remember, part of my answer was that the technologies in a lot of senses is underdeveloped, and I mean resources are underdeveloped, meaning that if you really want to learn about the technology versus learning about data warehouse, which is this old form of the same idea, the amount of resources that you have is like not comparable. For one, you would have billions of pages online only. For one, you are struggling to find, I don't know, something which works. Yeah.
So it seems that we need a single source of truth on data fabric.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so perhaps advise caution, but there are certain Google searches, or there are a myriad Google searches around semantics, knowledge graph, ontology, triple patterns that would serve to be useful. Other data leaders then, what advice would you give to them or organizations that are considering implementing, as gradual as the process would be, they're considering implementing data fabric? What advice would you give to them?
I would say it is going to be very important that you know it is meaningful for you to use such high-tech technology, because you don't want to overkill it, right? A lot of, let's say that if you were one of these conventional construction company who is just wanting to just make some financial analysis on like how much does a building cost, or like how long did it take for us to build this building, probably we wouldn't need such a high-tech solution for this. So if you're putting that much of effort into this, we need to make sure that it is actually beneficial for us. So maybe that's one caution that is relevant to be mentioned. And then, yeah, I would say that's the main thing, because I don't
consider if it's a real value add to the business against the cost of implementation, and maybe the education around the implementation as well. Okay, very good.
And of course, like, security risk as well, because here's the thing, like once you're having this single source of truth, like of course that is becoming the most important asset of you, right? Because everything that you know is there, every knowledge that you have is there. Yeah. And if somebody's accessing it, is accessing your everything. Yeah.
Okay, so solid, robust data security and data encryption, as well as data education, as well as I guess evaluating whether the business needs it and they need it now. It strikes me that the more complex businesses that are investing in the future would do well to invest in data fabric. Okay. Shayan, you named it. Time is of the essence. Thank you very much for today, and I'll leave it there for now.
Unfortunately, I have lost your voice. Do you still hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I do hear you as well. Would you please repeat your question?
It was more of a conclusionary statement. Thanks for listening, listeners. Thanks for your massive input on this topic of data fabric today, Shayan. And I look forward to seeing you and talking about this as it evolves.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me. It was of course a pleasure to talk about this. I'm personally very much passionate about the topic, especially because I believe that this is going to be the future of our data storage, or let's say that in the future, a lot more people are going to move toward this technology. So I'm very much passionate about it. And yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm looking forward to more conversation around the same topic.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's perhaps review in 12 months, see where we're at.
Sure.
Cool.
Pleasure.
Cheers, Shayan. See you next time.